Thanks for being here. This is true crime and celebrity news. If true crime and live court trials and short videos your thing, with some celebrity news thrown in, please consider subscribing to my channel and also don't forget to hit the like button. If you enjoy the content, please check and make sure the notification bell is on. Have a wonderful day and see you in the next live.
Good morning, everybody. So change of plans. I did not know Dustin Duren was being sentenced today, and the Brian Walsh case, the defense has rested, so they're just doing their thing over there. Today is Thursday, August 11th. Thank you so much for being here and in the replay. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. So we're just pretty much waiting. And I could have swore that we watched this trial from Long Crime. I could have swore, but maybe not. So that's what we're doing right now, today, as this moment is on. I guess I could share my screen. He's just sitting there, minding his own business. So I couldn't even get a thumbnail put together because I don't know when I cleaned out my computer because it was moving so slow. I've gotten rid of it. But I will make a new one and not use my thing for my. So we got a whole beard going on. That's nice. Be pretty long because, you know, family and stuff will want to talk. Well, I don't know. She didn't have much family there. He's got his colic thing going today. I got to use the ladies' room. I'll be right back. Come on. So that's what we're going to do is watch his sentencing because there ain't nothing going to go on in the Brian Walsh case till tomorrow. I guess they'll do the closing statements tomorrow. So, but Kathy and I watched this whole trial together Man, we stuck this whole trial out. We thought for sure he was wasn't innocent, but we didn't think he was going to be found guilty because in New Hampshire they have that. If you feel like your child are in imminent danger of being kidnapped, even if it's the own parent kidnapping them, you have a right to defend them. That includes deadly force. Well, didn't work out well for Mr. Duren. Oh, I need to fix my thumbnail. Thank you to whoever's here. Good morning. I didn't know this was today. Did you? I seen this and was like, thank God I seen it. So I can put it in my my playlist as a finished file, a finished playlist where from start to finish. I wonder, what do you think she's gonna give him? Or he, is it a he, right? I'm thinking 25. Is that what? Or could it be as low as 15? What do you think, Kathy? Um uh um remember Caitlin Naffziger? He shot her in the head while he was holding while she was holding one of the little girls. Hold on. Murder. Yeah, I
What time you guys gonna do?
Yeah, it was supposed to start at 9. That's why I hopped on so quick. All right, I've taken my shower, and my landlord wants to go for lunch today. Is he drawing or drawing up his life plans behind bars? I'm going to run and grab my blood pressure medicine. I'm back. Kathy, did we watch? Are you still in here? Did we watch this on Law and Crime or Court TV? The trial. Yeah, I can't find it on Law and Crime. Law and Crime. Oh, they're talking. I can hear it on my TV in my room. Oh, because I'm behind. Okay, maybe they're not talking. Oh, I might have to hop in the shower because my landlord's going to be here at noon. In Iowa, you don't want to go outside with a wet head, not even close to a wet head. I can't imagine what they're doing. Why it's taking so long. Did they already do it and I just missed it? Normally sentencing, they don't get to wear street clothes. Normally they have to wear the jail attire. Oh my gosh. Well, I guess. Do you see it this on Law and Crime? Because I don't see it. Maybe you might see it.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Judge before the court is State versus Dustin Duren, document number 294, 2024 CR 28. We're here for a sentencing hearing. Counsel, please identify yourself for the record, beginning with the state.
Bethany Duren for the state.
Good morning. Josh Fleischer for the state.
Good morning, Your Honor. Margaret Kettles representing Mr. Duren. Morning, Attorney Hannah Kay, with Mr. Duren, who is the
Good morning, Counsel. Good morning, Mr. Duren.
We're going to make counsel approach for you.
Yes.
Oh, everything keeps falling on the floor. I am trying to find. Wonder how long they'll spend on closing tomorrow for Brian. Unlawed crime. Oh. Wait, I might have one. Jesus. Whoa. Ears. Come on, people. Who? Oh, yeah, the Brian Walsh. Yeah, they're coming back at 11. Yeah, I knew that. But I didn't even cover this morning. Well, because I thought they were going to have Proctor and Brian, and what a disappointment.
Council, I've been advised relative to that request, and I'm going to grant that request. The court will take a brief recess in order to effectuate that, and we'll get started very soon. Thank you.
What? Oh my God. You know, these court things are going to be the death of me. I don't know why my computer is running like dial up. Oh, good. The Great Seal. I suppose I'm here all by myself. Probably. I always am. That's okay. I'll watch them by myself. That's one thing that don't bother me, is I don't mind being by myself. I even talk to myself. Yes, ma'am. I'm going to make some peanut butter and honey toast just to hold me over until I go eat Mexican with the landlord. She says she wants to run something by me. I said, are you kicking me out? She says, no. Okay, because I said I wasn't going to go. Maybe she's going to let me rent a house. Or put the washer and dryer in. Do something. I'm going to make tuna and noodles for supper tonight. Ew, Leah. You're so naughty. Mommy's mad. next Tuesday, I go out to Iowa City, get an x-ray of my neck, see if there's anything else broke. I know he's going to tell me the pain that I have is just something I'm going to have to live with, which is very saddening because it's not something you want to spend the rest of your life living in, pain like this. Wouldn't be so bad if it was like, a seasonal thing. But it's every day I'm in pain. I'm going to eat my toast, so I'm going to mute. Oh, that'd be nice if she did. She said, hold on, I'll tell you exactly what her text message says. She says, how are you feeling today? Well, because I don't hear my phone go off, I didn't answer her for like 3 hours. She's like, lunch at the Mexican restaurant? She says, I'll buy. Well, you have to buy, lady. I'm poor. I have an idea I want to run by you. Well, it'd be nice if she would be putting in a washer and dryer. My computer's running like it's dial-up. And I got fiber optic internet. And my computer is completely cleaned out. Oh, the break's over.
Thank you again. Please be seated.
Why can't we hear it?
Jeff, we're back on the record in State versus Dustin Duren, docket number 214, 2024 CR 28. In the sentencing hearing, I'll ask counsel to identify yourself again, please, for the record.
Bethany Duren for the state.
Josh Spicer for the state.
Margaret Kettles representing Mr. Duren. Hannah Kinney representing Mr. Duren, and Mr. Duren is present.
Okay, good morning to all council, and good morning, Mr. Duren. Okay, anything further before we proceed, council? Okay. Council for the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. On October the 28th, a jury unanimously found the defendant guilty of second-degree murder, both knowing and reckless, of reckless conduct with a deadly weapon, and of endangering the welfare of a child. As indicated in our previously filed state sentencing memorandum, the state is seeking today what we believe is the only appropriate sentence. That is, the state's recommendation that Mr. Duren be sentenced to 45 years to life for knowingly murdering Caitlin Naffziger, and a consecutive but fully suspended sentence of 3.5 to 7 years for reckless conduct for placing their daughter Elowen in danger. That sentence, under the state's recommendation, release on the murder charge. As to the charge of endangering the welfare, and a 1-year sentence, which would run concurrent to the murder charge. Along with that reckless conduct sentence, the state is requesting a no contact order. The no contact order would include no contact with Caitlin's family as named, and no contact with the children. It is the state's understanding that there is a current mediation agreement concerning custody of the children between the Naffziger family and the defendant's parents, which calls for the defendant to have no contact with the children for the foreseeable future. The state is also requesting that this court include an order that the defendant not be allowed to profit in any manner from the death of Caitlin Naffziger or from this incident and his actions therein. The full text of that is included on the sentencing forms that the state provided. Further, the state is requesting that the court order restitution in the amount of $12,007.69 payable to the New Hampshire Victims' Compensation for lost wages and counseling that were incurred by the family as a result of the death of Caitlin. The sentencing forms filed by the state show that the defendant has 650 days of pretrial credit. Under the state's recommended sentence, the state would be eligible for a sentence reduction of up to 21 months under the statutory provisions of 651A22 for earned time credit. And he would be eligible to apply for further sentence reduction after completing 2/3 of his sentence, 65120. Those are statutory provisions that the state has no power to change. Were the defendant to obtain all of these statutory reductions, he would potentially be eligible for parole on the murder charge in approximately 28 years, meaning that he would serve significant time for his actions in murdering Caitlin, an unarmed woman, the mother of his children, and for his conduct in endangering Elowen. Turning briefly to the defendant's requested sentence, the defendant is asking this court to sentence him to a mere 25 years to life for murder. The defendant argues that such a proposed sentence would lead to the defendant serving decades in prison, but that is not entirely accurate. Such a sentence would mean that if the defendant took advantage of available statutory reductions under 651A22 and 65120, he could be eligible for release from prison in just over 11 years. Those statutory provisions and reductions are never guaranteed, but they should be considered by this court in sentencing, as they are available and they do impact the truth in terms of sentencing here today. That truth is important to the victim's family, to the community, and to this court's final sentence as it relates to the goals of sentencing. Later this morning, or potentially this afternoon at this point, this court will have an opportunity to hear from Caitlin's family, to hear about her from people who loved her, instead of how the defendant portrayed her and what he presented about her during the trial. In these victim impact statements, the court will hear about Caitlin's life and about the impact of Caitlin's death on the people who loved her. The court will also hear about the impact of the defendant's actions on his and Caitlin's children. The family will ask this court to give the defendant the maximum possible sentence. One of their concerns is that the sentence given should ensure that both Elowen and Valen, the two minor children, are old enough to make decisions for themselves should the defendant be released from prison, old enough to decide how much involvement in their lives they are willing to allow the defendant to have and what that contact should be. As described in the state sentencing memorandum, the state sentence takes into account mitigating and aggravating factors, and it is in alignment with comparable cases throughout the state. This recommended sentence would instill confidence in the justice system that a domestic violence murder of an unarmed woman seated on a sofa, wrapped in blankets, is the kind of violent, wanton action that will be severely punished. The state's recommendation meets the defendant's actions in murdering Caitlin Naffziger with the serious response that he deserves. In contrast with the defendant's military service, which the defendant has cited as a mitigating factor and which he uses to seek leniency from this court, the court should consider the multiple aggravating factors involved in the defendant's cruel and knowing murder of Caitlin Naffziger. First, the defendant's motive in killing Caitlin was not related to his military service or to his PTSD diagnosis, but rather to his own stated justification that she wouldn't leave his apartment and she wouldn't let go of their oldest daughter. 2, his use of a deadly weapon. As a trained marksman, the defendant used that weapon, his handgun, to execute Caitlin with a single shot that he aimed at her left temple. As he testified, he absolutely was aiming, and he knew where the bullet would go and what the result would be. 3, Caitlin's injury was to a vital organ. She suffered damage to the head and to her brain. What's more is that the autopsy report shows that she aspirated blood, evidence that she took at least a breath after the defendant shot her. The defendant's crime, 4th, took place in the privacy of his apartment. It was in front of children. There were no other potential for witnesses to observe the murder. He did not call for assistance or report what had happened, and he did not check to see if Caitlin had survived the injuries she incurred. 5, he fled. He turned out the lights. He closed the door. He packed his car. He took clothing for multiple days, food, and his desktop computer that he used for work. 6, he initially attempted to conceal what he had done by essentially walking away with the couple's children. Only 5 hours later it was that he decided to call, not the police, but his parents, over 1,400 miles away. And still, he did not turn himself in. The defendant finally made several statements after the murder. He confessed to his parents. He confessed to the police. He told them all that Caitlin refused to leave and wouldn't let go of Elowin. But even in that confession, he spent more time talking about Caitlin's past wrongs against him and of his belief that he loved the children more than she did than he actually did talking about his murder of her. Essentially, the defendant's statements attempted to pass blame for the murder onto Caitlin herself. The state also asked this court consider additional aggravating factors. The trauma that was suffered by the children in witnessing the crime, in hearing it, in dealing with the aftermath of the defendant's actions. Elowin was old enough to witness, to understand, and to explain to others what had happened. She is old enough to remember and to hold on to the last memory she has of her mother, left behind, dead, on the sofa. The state also asked this court to consider that the defendant has shown no remorse for his actions and continues to present them as justified. Your Honor, Caitlin was a person sitting on a sofa. She was wrapped in blankets. She had one foot on the coffee table. She wasn't wearing shoes. She wasn't familiar with the area, did not.
Kathy, remember, we didn't like her last time. I still don't like her.
Not have a car and had no other people that she knew within hours of the defendant's apartment. The defendant was larger, stronger, trained in hand-to-hand combat, and an expert marksman. He had a gun. He had access to knives. He stood between her and the doorways, and he had access to the only vehicle. He was in complete control, and he held every tactical advantage. He told detectives that he was calm, that he only yelled one time, that he performs well under stress, and now he has been found guilty of knowingly murdering Caitlin. The defendant's proposed sentence asked this court to treat because he is a veteran, because he voluntarily served, essentially to discount his actions in killing Caitlin because of his military service. The defendant speaks in his pleading about that military service, and the state expects this court to hear about it today from his counsel. He speaks about his service-related PTSD. His pleading includes a letter of support from a veterans organization which asks for leniency based on his time, the defendant's time with the Marines. There's no indication that the person who wrote this letter ever met the defendant, but merely reviewed historical records and other service members. The person who wrote this letter also bases his opinions on the report of Dr. Pittman, which the court has also received from defense. This court is well aware of pretrial litigation concerning the reports and opinions of Dr. Pittman. This court is aware that Dr. Pittman accepted the word of the defendant for many of the facts in the report, and is further aware that Dr. Pittman has since amended and/or changed some of his opinions. Yet those opinions remain included in the document that the defendant has submitted in support of his sentencing argument. While anyone who chooses to serve in the military should be lauded for their sacrifices, such praise does not translate to preferential treatment when a person takes violent criminal action. It does not translate to leniency in sentencing for the murder of an unarmed woman, for execution of the mother of his children, or for subjecting their oldest daughter to witness all of it. Here, in this case, the defendant's military service does not entitle him to any degree of leniency. The defendant chose not to argue at trial that there was any link between his service or his PTSD and his actions. He cannot now claim and throw on the court that his service somehow warrants beneficial treatment. On the night that he murdered Caitlin Naffziger, the defendant was not a soldier, and neither was she.
I'm sorry, but nobody that ever served in the military, I don't care if they've never gone to war, anything like that, should ever morally be ripped from what they have done. It takes a big person to join the military, a big person to fill those shoes. She shouldn't be ripping him from that. They should be stopping her from saying all that.
The apartment where he killed her was not a battlefield. If anything, the defendant's military service should have given him the discipline to recognize that Caitlin was an unarmed civilian, a woman sitting on a couch holding their child. The defendant's attempt to portray his criminal and murderous behavior as somehow related to his military service is a disservice to other veterans everywhere. In his sentencing filing, the defendant writes that his diagnosed PTSD is based on his witnessing the suicide of a fellow Marine and the impact that witnessing that death had on him and his fellow service members. This court should consider that. The defendant understands, therefore, exactly how his actions in murdering Caitlin Naffziger in full view of their 4-year-old daughter will impact that child for the rest of her life. Just as he remembers the suicide he encountered, she will forever remember that her father shot and killed her mother. She will forever have a memory of her father with his angry face and his black gun, of her mother dead on the gray couch, and of her mother's blood dripping onto her chest from the gunshot wound in her head. She will forever remember leaving her mother's dead body behind in the apartment as they fled. In his sentencing filing, the defendant speaks about how important his children are to him. The state anticipates that this court will view a slideshow showing him in loving moments with those children. The state doesn't doubt that he loves them, but the defendant is selfish. He is a loving father, does not murder the mother of his children. A loving father does not handle disputes over the custody and future of that child or those children with a gun. No matter how frustrated the defendant was with Caitlin, nothing gave him the right to settle the dispute with violence. The defendant's actions and his actions alone have irrevocably taken the life of Caitlin Naffziger and injured both of their children through the murder of Caitlin. A good father acts in the best interests of his children, even if it means compromising, dealing with frustration, swallowing his pride. A good father puts his children before himself. The defendant is not a good father. He is a murderer who selfishly put his own interests above those of his children. He wanted Caitlin out of the picture. And
oh my God. I cannot believe they're allowing her to do this. I mean, you can't sit and defame somebody. Oh, I can't.
Children to himself. And when she wouldn't go, wouldn't leave their daughters, he killed her. Actions speak louder than words. And no amount of words from the defendant or from his supporters about how much he loves his kids can conceal the fact that he chose to murder Caitlin so that he could get what he wanted at the expense of those children. He wanted a world in which he didn't have to deal with Caitlin, even though that meant his daughters would grow up without their mother. By shooting and killing Caitlin, by aiming and pulling that trigger, he got what he wanted. The statements that defense counsel has provided, written by the defendant's family, his cousins, and friends, they talk about how much these children love him.
Who needs a prosecutor when you got one like her? She can read everybody. She knows everything about everyone.
They request that this court look to leniency to allow him to be part of those children's lives.
No, you took that away.
There's little doubt that these young children love their father. He's their father. But also, they must be so confused about those feelings, so confused about his actions in killing their mother, and so lost knowing that their mother will never come back and that the defendant is to blame for that. And yet neither the defendant...
Well, they wouldn't know that unless you told them.
...nor his family seem to recognize the damage that he caused, the injury to those children, the loss that they have suffered, and how it will impact their lives forever. The defendant murdered their mom. He shot and killed her in front of Elowen, and Valen had to hear the argument and the gunshot. The defendant subjected Elowen to the same kind of trauma that he now seeks to have this court recognize as a reason to treat him with leniency. He and he alone is responsible for the death of Caitlin and for the trauma of those two little girls. The state provided several comparable cases which show sentences within the range of the state's recommended sentence. We recognize that no two cases are ever factually the same, but the cases that the state has provided give the court information which shows that the sentence the state is requesting is both reasonable and within the range of sentences given to persons who commit similar crimes. In addition to the cases that the state provided, this court should also consider a sentence in State versus Emerson Figueredo, which is citation is 217-2019 CR 00726, a case out of Merrimack County. This was a domestic murder where the 43-year-old defendant stabbed and killed his wife during an argument. Their children were present. They witnessed it. In fact, they tried to stop it. He pled guilty to knowing second murder, and he received a sentence of 45 years to life. So too has the defense presented cases that they argue to this court are comparable, and which they believe give the court grounds to sentence the defendant to a lesser sentence. Those cases are not, in fact, comparable to this. Moving through them briefly, Your Honor. Dylan Sleeper, not a domestic incident. There was no relationship between the parties. The case involved a single stab wound during an argument. The defendant had scratches on his neck. He was convicted after a trial of second-degree murder, not of knowing second-degree murder. Tyrese Harris, not a domestic incident. It involved road rage. No relationship between the parties. The defendant argued that he was acting in self-defense and to protect his pregnant girlfriend. The defendant was inside of his own car when the victim approached the driver's side door and was shot. The defendant was crying, and he actually demonstrated remorse when he confessed. Drew Morris, not domestic. No relationship between the parties. They had just met and were drinking. The defendant pled guilty to knowing second-degree murder. He shot and killed the victim, indicating that he, the victim, had reached for the defendant's gun just before the shooting occurred. John Hogarty, a 53-year-old defendant. This was domestic. Mr. Hogarty pled guilty to reckless second-degree murder. There was a child present during that case. That child was sleeping, and he was in a different room. After Mr. Hogarty killed his wife, remained on scene, he wrote a confession. He called 911. He reported the incident. He even packed a bag for his child and turned that child over to the police, and then made an oral statement confessing his crime. Caitlin Paquette. This was a plea to reckless second-degree murder in a child abuse case. She was bathing her child and pulled her down from a standing position to a sitting position, striking the child's head into the side of a cast iron tub. Jonathan Bejewel, not a domestic case, no relationship between the parties. The defendant was high on meth. He was described as delusional and paranoid. The incident arose out of a chance encounter.
Hi, Cindy. We're watching the Brian Walsh case, the defense rest. So we're going on with this, and then at 11 o'clock they're going to come back, and I think closing arguments tomorrow. If I got that wrong, Kathy, let me know. But this is the Dustin Duren sentencing. He second-degree murder of his wife. He's being sentenced today. Okay.
Stranger. Gary Marchand, a 54-year-old defendant. He pled to knowing second-degree murder. He did kill his wife. He raised and had been hospitalized for mental health issues about a month prior to the murder. Justin Belanger, not a domestic incident, no relationship. He pled to reckless second-degree murder. In that case, there was a female victim who was shot. That victim was unknown to Mr. Belanger. He was arguing with a man, and he shot at that man, striking the victim in the hip. Mr. Belanger was also only 19 years old at the time he committed his offense. Last, Peter Bartoloni. He pled guilty to reckless second-degree murder. That 70-year-old defendant was intoxicated and blackout drunk when he killed his roommate. In contrast, now 38-year-old Dustin Duren has been convicted after trial of knowing second-degree murder. The defendant's act of killing Caitlin was an unwarranted execution of an unarmed woman, someone he once loved. He had shot her in front of one of their children who has described this incident to investigators and to family members. A 4-year-old girl who was the victim of the defendant's reckless conduct and was lost her mother as a result of the defendant's action. There was no involvement of alcohol, no drugs. The defendant did not claim that his PTSD was triggered. He did not claim insanity. Caitlin never reached for the gun. She only asked him what he was going to do with it. Following the murder, the defendant initially fled. He told no one about what had occurred. He has done nothing to show a shred of remorse or regret for the life that he took. The state's recommended sentences meet the goals of sentencing. For all of the reasons discussed here today, documented in the state's sentencing memorandum and observed by this court at trial, the defendant's murder of Caitlin Naffziger is justly deserving of severe punishment. With regard to rehabilitation, there is no evidence before the court that links this defendant's acts of murder, knowing murder, to any psychological, intellectual, cognitive, or developmental condition or deficiency. The state's recommendation leaves in place statutory avenues for sentence relief under earned time credit and under the application for 65120 reduction that this defendant can work on his own to attain. In terms of deterrence, any length of imprisonment below the state's recommended sentences would do little to prevent similar violence. A lesser sentence would instead send a dangerous message to the community, would-be killers, and victims that a domestic violence homicide committed in the presence of a minor child is somehow not worthy of significant sentence. The defendant's actions in killing Caitlin Naffziger and recklessly endangering Elowin were eminently harmful, have wide-ranging repercussions, and should be strongly discouraged in society. A domestic violence murder such as this is exactly the type of crime that requires a significant sentence to punish and to deter the defendant from similar action, to send a strong message of deterrence to the community, and in order to instill public confidence in the system of justice. As this court is likely only too aware, over 50% of the murders that occur annually in the state of New Hampshire are domestic related. As evidenced by case law and statutory protections, this state has a strong interest in deterring such domestic violence. The defendant killed Caitlin inside of his home in the presence of their children. His actions injured one of those children and caused her to witness the murder of her mother. The defendant shot Caitlin Naffziger from a distance of 3 feet or more while she was seated on that couch with her foot on the coffee table, wrapped in blankets, and while he blocked her access to any exit. For all of these reasons, the state asks that this court impose its recommended sentences in this matter. Your Honor, at this time, there are several persons who do wish to provide impact statements to this court. Some are present here in court today and others are appearing remotely over the WebEx. If I may have a moment.
Yes.
She wouldn't if she, for the very first time ever.
Name and spell their last name for the record. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Lori Smith. I am Caitlin's mother. Lori, Lori, Smith.
What's
S-M.
crazy is they didn't show up for the court. They didn't show up for not one court hearing for their daughter's murder trial, but they want to come now.
M-I-T-H. As I said, my name is Lori Smith. Caitlin Ray Naffziger is my daughter.
I don't know. Maybe they had other things to do. I don't know. I can't judge people. I shouldn't judge them.
I don't say was because she will always be my daughter. It's really hard for me to talk about the impact to me until I talk about Caitlin. I was there for her beginning, her very first breath. I brought Caitlin into this world March 10th of 1992 at 10:32 a.m. She was 4 pounds, 6.5 ounces, and just 17 inches long. And Caitlin has a twin sister, Taylor, 6 pounds, 4.5 ounces, 19 inches long. She was just older by 6 minutes. Caitlin has an older brother, Bailey, older by 2.5 years. Caitlin had to stay at the hospital for 2 weeks in NICU.
Oh, I forgot Caitlin was a twin.
Caitlin significantly lost weight and then couldn't hold her body temperature outside of the incubator. I was torn apart back then, and I was terrified that she wouldn't make it. I cried before I left her behind for the very first time ever. I had to go home with Taylor and Bailey and leave Caitlin behind. We made daily trips to feed Caitlin and to deliver breast milk to the NICU. Grandma Barb and Aunt Corky took turns running breast milk to the hospital and staying for her evening feedings. Her loving family helped her to turn the corner fast, and the nurses said it was key. Once Caitlin came home, those beautiful girls were reunited. They cuddled up together in the bassinet right by my bed. At first, I woke Caitlin every 2 hours to feed her, but she quickly got in sync with Taylor, and Bailey was the best big brother. Other older half-siblings, Sharia and TJ, were also part of her life at that time, and that was Caitlin's beginning. Caitlin's smile was lightning. Her laugh was so fun, it earned her the nickname Goose and others. Life and years went by, everyone growing up, and there are others who are going to fill in with their stories, and my kids like to hear stories. Caitlin was quiet, and she could make herself heard. She would talk to you if she trusted you. She wouldn't if she didn't. Caitlin loved music. She learned to play piano and violin. She messed around with the guitar. She loved books and movies in that order. Caitlin was an excellent student. She earned her Associate of Arts degree. She loved languages, Spanish, American Sign Language, Portuguese. Caitlin dreamed of traveling. She loved food. She loved to cook. She was hardworking, efficient, a valued employee in many different capacities: food service, cleaning, nannying, caregiver to multiple homes, a household manager, and a right hand to many others. Caitlin has 2 beautiful girls, Elowen, who just turned 6, Valen, who will soon be 3. Bailey is married to Heather. Heather and Bailey have 2 sons, Emmett, 4, and Grayson, 1. Taylor has her son Calvin, who's now 5. Caitlin has older half-siblings, Taria and TJ. Caitlin has step-parents, Rob and Sandy, and my husband, Tim. Caitlin has 2 living grandparents, Don and Barb, plus aunts and uncles and cousins. You will hear from some of them soon. Caitlin had so much family and so many friends. There are many people who have stories to tell about Caitlin and the life lived. So many people love Caitlin, and that love will never stop. On February 29th, 2024, at approximately 5:30 p.m., Caitlin was stolen from all of us. Her life here was cut short. She took her last breath, and I didn't know it for hours. That breaks my heart every day. But Dustin knew, and that monster told his parents, and I still didn't know. They knew for hours. They didn't care about Caitlin or any care about Caitlin. His parents said nothing to us for hours, and that makes me so angry, justifiably angry. At 3:18 a.m. Central Standard Time on March 1st of 2024, my phone alerted and it woke me up. I took a frantic phone call from my sister-in-law, Brenda. There was an Amber Alert in New Hampshire. Elwyn and Valen were missing, along with Dustin Duren, considered armed and dangerous, and he was running with them in his white Subaru with veteran plates. Photos of the girls and the car were included with the veteran plate number V69023, which is embedded in Carolyn Campbell's memory. Life changed over the coming minutes and hours. Brenda had tried to reach Caitlin with no answer, then had spoken with the Berlin Police Department, and they wouldn't tell her anything. Brenda said I needed to call them. So I called the Berlin Police Department after trying to reach Caitlin with no answer. They asked me questions, but they wouldn't answer mine. I hoped that Caitlin was with the police and that they had her phone. Is she with you? I asked. Is she hurt? I worried she was hurt and couldn't talk right now. I had the visual of her in a hospital bed, hurt. My mind was all over the place while I tried to remain calm. My husband got up for work while I remained on hold, and they were transferring me to the state police. Again, I was asked the same questions to determine who I was, and then I heard the devastating words, "I'm sorry to inform you that Caitlin is deceased." What? I told Tim twice that Caitlin is dead, and it's just impossible. I'm pretty sure I said to the trooper, Sergeant Mallory Littman, "Listen, we're a law enforcement family, and I understand you need to take. I understand, but what happened? I just need to understand how this happened. He killed her, didn't he?" And Tim took the phone. There were more words from new people. Bianca Monroe, victim witness advocate, became part of our lives. Then I had to call Bailey and Taylor. I woke each of them up to tell them over the phone. I felt sick having to tell them that way, but it couldn't wait. There was no way to say it that wouldn't be horrible. Taylor screamed. Bailey was stunned. We didn't know how, when, or why, or anything yet. And we began the absolute worst day of our lives. Tim called out of work immediately, and the law enforcement family had his back. We called out to our family members, and the shockwaves grew. I called my cousin. I can't come today. I had been working as a PCA for my aunt and uncle. Of course, and the shockwaves grew further. We were all in shock. There's a vacuum and a gaping hole. Everyone was coming to be together, waiting, terrified for the girls, fearing the worst for hours, and we were all struggling with it, all of us. Just after 10 Eastern, the girls are recovered safely. Thanks to the Amber Alert and Carolyn and Keene PD Officer Velez, Dustin is apprehended. The girls are with EMS and the hospital and DCYF. Now, Mark Duren calls my husband on my husband's cell phone. And it's not that they didn't have our phone numbers all along, both of our phones. I got word from Bianca about the girls' condition, their status, and what needed to happen to keep them together and with family. I wanted to fly up to be with them. Bianca told me that I needed to wait because they needed to be able to reach me as the next of kin to the girls and to Caitlin. I asked Brenda, Mark, and Shannon to be with the girls until I can be there. We're coming soon. And they said yes. Brenda and Shannon went to the hospital and Mark went shopping for everything on the list. They prepared for all of us to take over their lives in space. They did it for the girls. And we're coming as soon as possible. The girls needed family. They held Elwyn and Valen and did their best. They sent us pictures when they were allowed so we could see the girls. Still at the hospital, but with family waiting. And more hours go by before the girls could leave the hospital. We hear the manner of death. A single gunshot wound to the head. The manner is homicide. Caitlin died in seconds. Be prepared. The girls were present. Duren under arrest. The charge is second-degree murder, reckless behavior with a firearm, endangerment of a child. And we were all horrified. But now we're able to make our arrangements to leave. Taylor, Annie, and I, Grammy, flew from Minnesota to New Hampshire, to the girls, to Caitlin, early March 2nd. We functioned in shock for days. We held Elwyn and Valen and did our best. And there was no time to grieve. It was impossible to describe the emotions, the high level of relief for the girls and concern for the girls, but we just did what we needed to do.
And I'm sure
I was told I would need to attend a hearing to be appointed as a temporary guardian for the girls, file online, submitted immediately, and that we should be able to take the girls home by the end of the week. We booked our flights for Saturday to go home. Taylor and I went to the funeral home after the medical examiner released Caitlin. Taylor and I made choices together about what Caitlin would have wanted. As her mom, I had to see Caitlin to accept that she was really gone. It couldn't be real. Taylor couldn't, but she waited close by for me. I wasn't allowed to touch Caitlin. I stood near her, looked at her face, crying and shaking, and I told her goodbye, my girl. My heart was breaking again, and I could barely breathe. Then I left her behind. This time she wasn't coming home. Taylor played her favorite music in the car as we drove away from Caitlin back to her girls. We cried and we drove and we told stories. Then we collected ourselves before we went to be with the girls. We held Elwyn and Valen and did our best for them for days, with no time to heal, no time to grieve, just working to go home to family. March 7th, 2024, the hearing for temporary guardianship, where we should be able to go home, some jerk attorney showed up to intervene on his parents' behalf. They weren't even there. Because of your parents, and you, Dustin, did you even know? I was not going to leave the girls behind. I stayed.
Why do they got to be jerks?
Caitlin missed her birthday. She would have been 32. Caitlin would have celebrated with Taylor. No time to heal. No time to grieve. We had birthday cupcakes, and Elwyn and Valen blew mommy's candles out for her. I was blessed with my attorney, who is now a friend, and we continued to fight to bring the girls home. Your parents calculated and lied to make themselves look more significant in the life of the girls while they stayed in Minnesota until they were allowed to clear out the crime scene. Then they attempted to insert themselves into the lives of the people who actually showed up without hesitation for Elwyn and Valen. As the weeks went by while we fought to go home, we held Elwyn and Valen and did our best for them as it became months before we could bring them home to settle and heal. Caitlin's family members took turns, flew to New Hampshire to help because it takes a village. May 6, 2024, we're finally free to go home. I had done what nobody else could do. I stayed. We loved them and would not let our girls be passed off to strangers. I was not alone, ever. I committed until we brought them back home. May 8th, 2024. Now I am finally home with my husband in a safe place to fall apart. And I did. We found therapy for Elwyn, then for ourselves. Caitlin's memorial service was June 21st, 2024. I couldn't even speak. It was surreal. Dustin, your parents sent a heartless and threatening message that very morning of her service. It was unforgivable and incredibly painful. We continued to deal with one legal attack after another, pieces of the criminal processes from what you had done in the wound. No time to heal or grieve. Still, we will never give up on the love for Caitlin and Elwyn and Valen. Caitlin had so much more to do, so much she was looking forward to. Elwyn has had 2 birthdays without her mommy. Taylor has had 2 birthdays without her sister. Valen will be celebrating another birthday without her mommy. Caitlin is missing Annie and Tyler's wedding and everything surrounding it. She had a brand new blank passport. Caitlin died without a single stamp. Dustin, you pulled her away from her village when you moved to Nevada. Then you broke promises and pulled the rug out from under her. Know this. Every time she came back to her village, she came to see me. I knew things were not good, but she tried to work with you. She did her best. When she had enough, she came home to her village again. Now I'll talk about me personally. I received the shock of being notified about Caitlin's death. I felt it and I held myself together. Through most of that day, I held it all back, the responsible person, to be a strong mother for Caitlin, for Bailey, for Taylor. I stuffed my emotions until the end of the day. My sister Lisa finally got my first real release of grief. Why? Then I collected myself. I went home and packed. I cried and I packed books and toys for the girls, their favorite things from my home. I cried as we arrived at the airport because my husband, Tim, was going to hold down the fort at home. We should be home with the girls in a few days, but he knew I would see Caitlin and he wouldn't be with me for that. Then it turned into months before I could come home, where I could deal with the grief. We did our absolute best for the girls and we held each other up. We were strong women supporting those girls. Tim told us how proud he was of all of us on nightly phone calls from home, and I would talk to my sister each night. I would watch Elwyn, afraid to go to bed, up every 10 minutes because she was scared to dream about the things you did. Her mommy, I did too.
But you know, the thing is that when somebody dies and they leave children in the world, sometimes being with the grandparents is not always the best thing, because that grandparent isn't going to do what's best for that child. They're going to say horrible things about the other parent. They're just going to be nasty, you know. I feel that a child should go with someone that's going to be equal to each and not, she's got too much anger in her, and right to be angry. So raising those two girls is not for her benefit at all. She can't help anybody until she gets help for herself.
She would toss and turn at night, cry in her
Yep.
sleep. She wouldn't look in the mirror because she didn't like that girl.
You know, the thing is she would have back of her mind that something happened, but unless you give her daily reminders, this little girl, daily reminders that her mommy's not here because daddy illed her. Of course, she's going to have nightmares. She's going to be scared. And she's not going to like her dad. You can't tell a kid that. You just have to go on with your life, grieve on your own, cry on your own. Crying in front of them girls is the worst thing you can do.
We were terrified for her. She was not okay. Valen seemed physically okay, but her mommy is suddenly gone. She didn't understand except to seek someone to trust and to bond with. Someone who won't leave her, won't go away, who loves her. I stayed. Valen remembered me. I had been with her a lot, and Taylor, and then when Alicia came, both girls attached to her. Alicia looked and felt like mommy to Valen. Elowen saw it too. This was crushing, and we needed to get home for stability. Instead, we were held hostage because of your parents' antics and actions. We should have been home where we all belonged. And this still makes me angry, justifiably angry. Delaying grief took a toll on me. Staying in fight or flight mode caused my inability to sleep, and trauma caused nightmares when I did sleep. I kept seeing what I imagined happened. Caitlin told me what happened. She visits me.
Oh,
Elowen told me what happened. I believed her. I still do. I always will. I have a therapist.
Oh no, I never thought that they aren't emotionally, but you can clearly tell she's not okay. And to be raising two little girls that apparently are suffering from this, they need to be somewhere else while she gets help for herself. Oh no, I totally agree. I'm just saying that you can't sit around and talk horrible about the other parent to the children. You just can't. That's wrong. And when you're grieving, if she can't grieve, then the kids need to go somewhere where she can grieve, because apparently the kids are having a hard time. That's all I was saying. I'm not saying anything bad about Caitlin. She didn't deserve this. Her mom didn't deserve this. But I don't think talking bad about the other parent, because if she's talking bad about him in open court, imagine what she's saying behind doors. Dustin doesn't deserve that. Those are his children. I would be so mad if somebody were to talk ill about me to Amy. Oh, I'd be mad.
Eventually, we reached the point that I needed to get medication to sleep, something to manage my anxiety and real complex PTSD, something to minimize my nightmares, then my blood pressure. I have never been on medication like I am now. I still struggle to go to sleep. Those images, my nightmares, it turns out I wasn't far off. Now I'm watching the real pictures, the evidence. Guilty, 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 guilty. Despite what you and your parents want to tell yourselves, Elowen will always love and miss her mommy. She will tell Valen what she remembers. We will believe Elowen. We always have. With my very last breath, I will share Caitlin's love of her girls with them. The toll's been paid from our side. It needs to be paid from yours now. Your selfish hatred led you to take an unjustified
And yeah, but the kids were way too little. The kids love their dad. They love their dad. She can't say that she don't. Well, maybe she should have left. he warned her so many times. Go. They were having problems. He told her, go, Caitlin. She wasn't even supposed to be there. I mean, it was a bad story. It was a horrible story. Horrible.
violent, irreversible action in front of Elowen, endangering her, damaging Valen.
But we also have to remember she was trying to kidnap his children so he would never see them again. So she shouldn't have done that either. That was her whole plan, for him to go to sleep. And she was going to kidnap the kids and take them back to Minnesota and totally lose contact with Dustin. He did not want that to happen. He wanted to be with his children.
You took Caitlin's life. Then you ran through the night, neglecting the well-being of the very children that you say that you love. Elowen, your everything, is terrified of the dark, now hates the woods. Now, Dustin Duren, you have a price to pay. I will have no problem watching you pay it. Thank you.
You go get some help, Mama. You need help.
And the next impact statement is going to come from the WebEx, and I believe it's Taraya Prashal.
Thank you.
Yep, they have lost both parents. Sad. Very sad.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
My name is Taria Prochel, TERRIAHPROECHEL. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Taria Prochel. I'm Caitlin's older half-sister. I lost Caitlin not once, but now twice. Her death means that this time the loss is permanent. Everything I've learned about my half-sister will be through the perspective of others. Their stories, their experience with her. But not my experience. Not my experience as her sister. Not my experience of listening to Caitlin tell me who she is. What her life has been like. No one can give me the experience of dreaming with Caitlin about what her future held, or to support her in all of the dreams she was already brewing up that I was so excited for. Caitlin was taken from me twice. But this time, it's permanent. I was estranged from my half-siblings when I was young. I didn't even know I was gonna have half-siblings. I was 8 years old, and I found out Bailey was in the hospital and his mom was healthy. I was shocked. Who is this mom? My dad has a wife, and she just had a baby. Somehow he completely forgot to tell us, and we had no idea. But a new family was emerging. My full brother
Well, that's a
TJ and
little
I started
odd.
weekend visits at my dad's house. At first, Bailey was just a little kid flitting around, and I didn't pay him much mind, but enjoyed having him around. And before long, the girls were born. But this was so different, and I was a little older. The birth of Caitlin and Taylor was one of the most important moments and stages of my life. I loved being a big sister. I wanted to teach them everything. I wanted to watch them develop, learn the small little things that toddlers learn. Make sure they were taken care of. I mastered the art of multiple bottles, diapers, napkins, and how to skillfully put down one twin without waking the other one up. I loved being with them, watching them grow up. But most importantly, I got to make sure they were okay. They were safe. Because to be honest, our house really wasn't that safe. Into my dad's having bad and gradually got much, much worse. My stepmom eventually separated, and we moved out with the kids. I did my best to keep coming on weekends to be with them, but it became difficult and eventually impossible, and the visit stopped permanently. But my desire to be with them never stopped. And for about 25 years, I thought about them all the time and missed them. Being the oldest of 5 is so core to my identity. The experience as a young kid of taking care of these small infants is core to my identity. And it was taken from me. I spent years searching for the kids, see if I could find them. It was hard because they changed their names. And then when I did find them, I didn't know how to go about it or who to reach out to first. Do I call Lori? We're adults now. Do I call Bailey? So I sat on it for years, just anxious, but wanting to talk to them so bad. Finally, I reached out, and we made a plan. And in December of 2023, me, my brother TJ, Bailey, Taylor, and Caitlin, we all met in person. It was awkward. After so much time, it was so heartwarming. I felt full. I was learning about them. They were learning about me. We were able to compare stories about what we heard our family was. Learn a little bit more about who we are individually and as a family. It was exciting. Caitlin wanted to keep communicating with me, and she did. Started texting, we started spending time one-on-one. It started to turn into a normal sister relationship. Wasn't there yet, but it was budding. Text just for no reason, sharing funny things that happened during the day. As I got adult, I realized that she's silly, playful, whimsical, amazing to be around, smart. In the few weeks I had with her, she taught me so much about how her brain works, how different it is from mine, how she relates to other people and the world. And it was amazing to have someone sitting right in front of me that was related to me, but fundamentally so different and in so many different ways than I am.
They're
That's
looking
what I
like,
was
who
getting
is
from
this
Caitlin,
lady?
the opportunity to know her, a chance to play, to support each other, to share. And after we reunited, it felt like we were gonna have a chance to create new memories and pick up where we are as sisters moving forward. But instead of building that relationship that was just starting to bud, within weeks, Caitlin was dead. And instead of getting to be close to her, I lost her just within weeks of getting her back. But this time it's forever. Just need to heal from this horrific trauma. Having just been anywhere in proximity to Caitlin's family, to me, creates the potential for an emotionally devastating result. So that we all have a chance to move forward, I request that this court give Dustin a maximum sentence allowed. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next statement is from Caitlin's aunt and uncle, Lisa and Tim, and our advocate, Bianca Monroe, will be reading.
Honorable Judge Frizzell, I am writing this victim impact statement to share the profound effect of the murder of my beloved Caitlin and how it has had on me, my family, and our community. It is difficult to put into words what we have endured, but I hope my words help convey the devastating impact of this tragedy. About my niece. Caitlin comes from a large Midwestern family that values children, faith. Caitlin was vibrant, compassionate, and a loving young woman and mother to her daughters. She brought joy and laughter into our lives every day. Her kindness touched everyone she met, and her sense of humor could lighten any room. She had dreams and aspirations, and she worked hard to achieve them. Her absence has left a void that can never be filled. There is no consoling thought in the way Caitlin died. She had so many years ahead of her. The emotional toll. Since her passing, our family has struggled daily with the overwhelming grief. The shock and the pain of losing her so suddenly and violently has shattered our sense of security. Simple moments like family gatherings, holidays, and birthdays have become reminders of her absence. We constantly relive memories, both joyful and painful, knowing we will never create new ones with her. Personally, I have faced sleepless nights, anxiety, and deep sadness. Her future has been needlessly wasted. No one deserves this. It is impossible to move forward without feeling the weight of this loss every day. My family has also suffered because of this crime. They have been affected emotionally and financially, and their daily lives have been disrupted. My other family members, especially her parents and siblings, have been forever changed by the tragedy. The lasting impact. The effects of Caitlin's murder extend far beyond our immediate family. Family, neighbors, many of my coworkers and members of our community who knew her have expressed their sorrow and disbelief. Her absence has left everyone feeling less safe and more vulnerable. It is terrifying to me that you have such disregard for Caitlin's life. The mother of your children. The girls suffer the loss of Caitlin, their mommy, every day. The sense of injustice has been overwhelming. It has been difficult to find meaning or closure. There are so many questions that will never be answered, and the pain of losing someone so young and full of promise never truly fades. Our hope for justice. As this statement is read in court, I ask that Caitlin's precious life, her dreams, and the love she shared be remembered. We hope that justice will serve in handing down the maximum sentence for these crimes, not only to hold Dustin Duren responsible and accountable for taking Caitlin's life, but also
trying to get rid of
honor
that
her memory
crackling
and
It's
help
their
our family
microphone.
begin the long process of healing. Nothing can bring Caitlin back, but we hope that by sharing our pain and loss, her life and value will be recognized and her voice will be heard. Conclusion. Thank you for the opportunity to express how deeply Caitlin's murder has affected us. We continue to cherish her memories and strive to find strength in each other as we move forward. We ask the court to consider the immeasurable impact of our loss when determining the sentence of this case.
Thank you.
I apologize. The next statement is also to be read by Ms. Monroe, and it is of Caitlin's grandparents, Barb and Dom.
Honorable Judge Rizal, we want to share with you our deep, personal, and heartfelt statement reflecting on the profound impact Caitlin had on her family and the immense loss we feel without her. Caitlin grew up in Minnesota, surrounded by a loving family who cared for and depended on her. I am Barb Daly, her maternal grandmother, and I often needed Caitlin's help to do things I couldn't manage on my own. Caitlin had an uncanny ability to notice what needed to be done and would quickly take care of tasks before I even had the chance to ask. Her presence and assistance were invaluable to me. Dustin, if only you had allowed your family to return home to Minnesota safely. Our family misses Caitlin's interactions with our grandchildren and great-grandchildren immensely. We miss her charming smile, her warm hugs, as well as her helpful ways. She had a unique talent for loving and involving all the little ones.
But it was during testimony that she was the one that wanted to move to New Hampshire.
Whether they were hers or others. Caitlin had the remarkable ability to keep everyone happy, including the adults watching her. She was an exceptional mother who knew how to create a joyful and harmonious environment. When Caitlin and her family moved to Nevada, we felt her absence deeply. However, we were overjoyed when she returned home to Minnesota. And then the unthinkable happened. Dustin, if only you had allowed your family to return home to Minnesota safely. We are in the last years of our life and are now left feeling sad and brokenhearted due to the actions of Dustin. He did not consider the devastating impact his actions would have on their little girls, leaving them frightened and heartbroken. Our family is forever changed by the loss of Caitlin, and we grieve for the love and light she brought into our lives. We don't know how we will ever recover from this horrible loss. There just is not enough time. Thank you for taking the time to read this statement. It is a small window into the profound sorrow and loss our family is experiencing. Respectfully.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next impact statement will be on the WebEx. And this is Caitlin's cousin, Annie Naffziger. Yes.
My name is Annie Naffziger. It's A-N-N-I-E. Naffziger, N-A.
No, I can't hear it.
I-G-E-R. I'm writing the statement of my siblings, Madeline and Trenton. Your Honor, we beg that you sentence Dustin Duren.
Caitlin, or Chi, as most called her, was our cousin. She is deeply important to our family and will never be the same without her. Growing up, despite our age difference, we were all very close. One summer, both of our families, 4 adults, 6 children, all lived in one house. We played together daily. She, along with her siblings, taught us the importance of Lord of the Rings, told us scary stories of the witch who lived in the neighborhood, and she even taught me my first swear word. She taught my older sister, Madeline, how to drive a manual transmission when she was old enough, and we all stayed close into adulthood, bonding over holidays, trips to our family cabin, and with Chi, usually live music at art fairs. She first told me she was pregnant with Evelyn by coming to my house and bringing me a fairy wand, asking me to be her baby's godmother. I accepted with my eyes and was able to hold Evelyn on the night she was born. Years later, when Caitlin was in labor with Balin, I massaged her neck and held her hand while Dustin played on his phone across the room. When our family first met the prosecutors on this case, they gave us a warning. They told us that the justice system is not built for the benefit of the victims and instead would be biased towards Dustin. It will silence Chi, but it will give him every opportunity to spew his lies. Though I would be happy to never have to speak about Dustin again, I think it's important that I be Chi's voice in this courtroom because he made sure that no one would ever be able to hear her again. I'd like to set the record straight on a few items. Though we spread countless lies in the courtroom, I'm only going to speak to the ones that I have personal knowledge of. Though there are many more that I won't address today, the jury proved that we can all use our common sense to dispel those. She never wanted Dustin to take Evelyn to New Hampshire. Dustin was only able to take her after events and manipulation, as he made her fear for her own safety as well as the safety of the girls if she were to try. She certainly didn't blindside him with a move to Minnesota from Nevada, as he was the one who ordered and paid for the pods that were sent to Minnesota. And I know this because she was not able to get her own items out of the pod in Minnesota since it was exclusively in his name. Any amount of money that she requested of Dustin was to pay her back for the minimum $20 that he had leached from her throughout the course of their relationship. Certainly not as any sort of ransom. Dustin lured Chi to Las Vegas by claiming he'd work at the post office until he found something that aligned with his passion. What he did instead was quit without consulting her after a month or two. He refused to get another job for the 3 years they lived in.
What still upsets me is the little girl's first Christmas when Caitlin took back up to Minnesota and left Dustin and the little girl with no Christmas presents or anything while she went and spent time with her family. Ugh. So, she might be gone, but she still made some mistakes. Not saying that she was a bad mom, because nobody's a bad mom. We all make mistakes.
Vegas. During that time, she worked at least 3 jobs at a time to support Evelyn and keep a roof over their heads. Dustin not bring in any income, yet he had no problem running up their bills, including refusing to sell his car, forcing Chi to make the payments, until she ultimately had to sell her own car to stay afloat. He also tried to stop her from using food stamps and government assistance, despite him being unwilling to get a job himself. He kept her in debt so that she had no choice but to stay. Dustin had laid his hands on Chi before, and though I can only wish she told us sooner, she told me after I had to help her file 2 separate police reports after Dustin refused to return the girls based on their agreed upon custody schedule in Minnesota. The reason he wouldn't let them leave with their mother was because she was afraid to tell him the address that she was living. She told Dustin's parents that day that she was scared of him, that he wasn't a safe person, and that he had guns. Dustin's dad, Mark, told her that that wasn't true, that she and the girls were safe around Dustin. This was only a few months before Dustin shot her in the head with the gun that his father gave him. Ellen was not okay and certainly not happy after she both watched and felt her mom be murdered. Anyone who spent more than a few minutes with her could tell you that. She recounted her mother's murder to anyone who listened nearly every day for weeks following the crime. As this is a courtroom, I should be fair. To Dustin, I should tell you I do believe you on some items as well. I believe you that she refused to leave your house without her daughters. I believe that because she loved them fiercely, and leaving them with you would have been subjecting them to a life of abuse, control, and isolation. I believe you when you said your computer was your life. I believe you in your first police interview when you said you knew what you did was wrong, but clearly no one could believe you when you said you were ready to accept any consequences. Despite all the trauma and heartbreak you caused, I'll rest easier after today. At the end of the day, I believe you to carry all of my pain, all of my suffering, and I will get to leave today as free as a bird. I'll go and wrap my arms around my goddaughters Evelyn and Dalen and find solace knowing that neither they nor any other women will ever be harmed by you again. Your Honor, thank you for the opportunity to offer a victim impact statement. The murder of our cousin continues to haunt us more all the time. We feel the loss of her at each passing holiday, where her small hands were always preparing our family's traditional meals, tidying up after an eventful game night, or joining in telling stories around the fire. With her humble demeanor and go-with-the-flow vibes, she always put others ahead of herself and tried to facilitate everybody else's good time. Our family portraits will always have an unfillable void where a small but mighty woman once stood. She's children will continue to grow older without her direct love, care, or guidance of the wonderful mother who made them. No penalty would be sufficient to remedy the loss of Caitlin, but we hope that Dustin's punishment is for life. There should never be a day where he feels he's paid his penance for taking Chi's life, as there will never be a day that our broken hearts will be whole again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next statement comes from Brenda Clement, Caitlin's aunt, who's in person.
Leah.
Brenda Plamondon, Plamondon.
Oh, she's the one that testified for Dustin.
Honorable Judge, thank you so much for allowing me to make a statement about how Caitlin's murder has impacted me emotionally, physically, and financially. I'm Brenda Plamondon. I'm Caitlin's aunt. Throughout the years, we have spent an unknowable amount of time together, including our whole family sharing a roof one summer. Caitlin coming to live with my family for a period of time after high school, holidays and vacations, and most recently a family trip to Hampton Beach to celebrate a holiday of my creation, Thanksmas. Because of what Dustin Duren did, I will never make a new memory with my niece. Shannon and I were the last non-incarcerated adults to see her alive. Emotionally, I want nothing more than to just go back to being normal again. And I have to live with this the rest of my life. That Shannon and I drove Caitlin and dropped her off to meet that monster. And I drove away and I left her there, alone, with a bag of wet clothes, because my dryer had stopped working because of the flood. I have to question my judgment, and I wonder if my family secretly blames me. But I am thankful that Shannon and I are alive. I have no doubt. Had we entered that restaurant with Caitlin, we would all be dead. Shannon and I picked up the girls from the hospital after they witnessed Dustin murdering their mother. Within minutes of our arrival, Elwin told me what had happened. He said to me, my daddy had his pew-pew, and he pewed my mom, and there was blood. My ear hurt. Elwin's story has never changed. She has even acted it out for me. The way her mommy's body wrapped around her went limp on the sofa. A few days after Caitlin's murder, Elowen again recounted how her father had shot her mother and then told me, my daddy didn't like my mommy anymore. What could be worse than that? The haunting sentence that followed. Did my daddy like you? Even a 4-year-old child was able to surmise that if her dad didn't like you, he may kill you. Physically, I feel exhausted. I have bags under my eyes from not being able to sleep. Even though I know Dustin is in jail, I have dreams that he's coming for me, and I certainly believe that he would kill me if he were ever allowed out of prison.
Why are you making this?
Talking about it, I have a constant knot in my throat, and I feel physical pain and numbness in my head. Prior to their mom's murder, Elowen and Valen were never in residence. Mark and Deborah Duren were quick to take this opportunity of Caitlin's murder by their son to continue their fight to gain custody of Elowen. By default, they included Valen. The custody dispute was the reason the courts in New Hampshire mandated the girls stay in New Hampshire while they determined jurisdiction for an entire group of people who were not New Hampshire residents. I believe the Durens, Mark, Deborah, and Dustin, began this custody battle while Caitlin was still alive in Minnesota, and that was their chance. A different state, different rules, and a dead mother. Deborah and Mark Duren hired a New Hampshire custody attorney and sat back comfortably at home in Minnesota and, like their son Dustin, continued to let Caitlin's family do the heavy lifting. The resulting financial impact was enormous. Tens of thousands of dollars were spent on airfare, housing, vehicles, and basic necessities, while the parade of Caitlin's loving friends and family dropped their lives to care for these children. My husband Mark and I tried to lessen the family's financial blow by providing housing and transportation for more than 3 months for Elowen and Valen and their steady stream of caretakers. For their benefit and use, we gave 2 vehicles and one of our properties, and this meant foregoing the rental income that we would have been received. Though we would have gladly housed them in our primary home, we were victims of the 100-year floods in Hampton just the week before. Never once was there a display of sympathy, empathy, or
Wait a minute. She testified for Dustin and never said half of the stuff.
financial support offered by Deborah, Mark, or Dustin Duren. They are not good people. Caitlin was quiet, bold and full of unbothered happiness. I can still hear the way that Caitlin would say Elowen's name. It's like she had all the time in the world and didn't want to rush the letters out of her mouth. She'd start with a slight L, cheerful and optimistic for what was coming, and then a deeper pitch and exaggerated O, with her mouth rounded like she was trying to hide a smile. Then the yin was soft, feminine, almost like she was singing it. Elowen, Elowen. Caitlin was always up for an adventure. She was part of a group, part of our family. And the absence left by her not being here cannot be explained. The last Thanksmas that Caitlin attended, she was pregnant with Valen. Dustin again didn't allow her to bring Elowen. Mark and Deborah Duren also began helping Dustin withhold Elowen from her mother. Thankfully, Dustin, Mark, and Deborah don't have much interest in Valen. But Elowen is just a little girl, and she's being treated like an emotional support animal for Dustin, Deborah, and Mark Duren. For all these reasons, I beg your honor for the maximum allowed sentence with no possibility of parole. Nobody in my family, including Elowen and Valen, will be safe if he is ever allowed back into society. Dustin, I was glad to hear that you're reconnecting with your faith. You are going to need that relationship with God to get through the tough times you have ahead of you. The first step in your spiritual journey is to stop lying. I have a couple of Bible verses for you. John 8:44. You are of your father, the devil, and you want to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks from his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. I share this verse with hopes that you understand the consequences of lying, its spiritual death. But I want to encourage you, of course there's hope in Christ. This is your life now. I recommend that you focus on being truthful and helping others from where you are in prison. 3 short verses of encouragement for you, Dustin. Ephesians 4:25. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we all are members of one body. Colossians 3:9. Do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old selves with its practices. Proverbs 12:22. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who act faithfully are his delight. And Lord, in your word, you promise rest for all those who cast their burdens upon you. So here in this courtroom, I lay down my fear, my anxiety, and sorrow, and trust in your true judgment and justice. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Your statement is Shannon Spurgeon. She appears in person.
Your Honor, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Shannon Spurgeon, Spurgen, and I was one of the last people to see Caitlin alive before she was murdered. Nothing can prepare you for the heartbreak of losing someone like Caitlin. Losing her in such a violent and senseless way shattered everyone who loves her. In the days that followed, I faced moments that will stay with me forever. Walking into the hospital with Brenda to pick up Caitlin's little girls was one of the heaviest moments of my life. Elowen had witnessed the murder. She told Brenda. She told me. She told everyone. She saw it, she felt it, and she will carry those images for the rest of her life. No child should ever have to live with that level of terror or confusion. I changed Valen's diapers. I held her when she cried. I tried to create moments of calm when nothing about their lives made sense. What haunts me the most is the time leading up to Caitlin's murder. The day before and the drive up to bring her to meet him. Had moments of laughter, but none of it felt carefree. All of us had been through domestic violence in our own lives. We understood the danger. We feared for her. We told her to leave anything she valued behind. We created a safe word. When she stepped out of that car, she looked so small, yet so determined. Brenda and I cried as we drove away. We will never emotionally recover from that moment. I even made a thoughtless comment that everything felt wrong and chaotic, that we might end up on the news. I also truly believe that if Brenda and I had walked into the restaurant with her that day, we would be dead too. I fear for my safety and for hers even now. That fear stays with me every single day. My life and the lives of everyone around her changed drastically the day she was murdered. Caitlin wasn't just my friend. She was a part of my family. She was kind, funny, strong, whimsical, and full of life. She loved her children fiercely. I feel deeply connected to her girls. I feel a responsibility to protect them. And witnessing their pain and confusion has changed me in a way I will carry forever. Because of one person's choice, her daughters must grow up without their mother. They will have birthdays, school plays, graduations, and weddings she will never see or be a part of because of Dustin Duren and his family. Nothing fixes this. But the only small sense of peace comes from knowing he will finally be held accountable and that he will never again have the chance to destroy another family. Caitlin deserved to live. Her children deserved safety. They deserved their mother. They deserved a childhood without nightmares. And all of us deserved a future where this never happened. Instead, we are left in the middle of a tragedy that we will never forget. We will never stop missing her, and will never stop carrying the weight of what he did. Thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me to speak for Caitlin and for all of those whose lives will never be the same without her.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next person presenting a statement is Sarah Heil, and she is, and I apologize if I said that last name incorrectly, she's appearing via WebEx.
Hello, Sarah Heil, S-A-R-A-H, last name H-E-I-L. My name is Sarah, and my best friend is Lisa. Never in my life did this statement I thought would be my truth, and now I painfully live with that fact every moment of every day. I've dealt with a lot of death and hardships in my life, but never thought I would have to learn to cope with an unjustified, violent, intentional murder of my best friend who I lived with. I find it nearly impossible to put into words what Caitlin has meant to me. No, her murder has impacted me, my life, without writing it into your book. Caitlin had an indescribable magic energy about her that brought me a sense of belonging and purpose. Caitlin called me her light, but in truth, she was mine. I don't quite know how to exist without her, nor would I ever choose to willingly. Caitlin wasn't proficient with expressing herself through words, but through long conversations sitting on the couch, dancing, and simply living life together, Caitlin was able to verbalize some things with me that she hadn't been able to previously. I am the one person who she shared everything with. I was her confidant, and it is now that it would be an honor to speak for her since she cannot. There's not enough space on these pages to list the inconsistencies, delusions, and straight up lies that were told and inferred by Dustin and his attorneys during the trial. Instead of listing what I know to be true from text messages and phone conversations with Caitlin, listening to conversations between Dustin and Caitlin, and my own attentive observations, will focus the broader scope of the impact of Dustin's actions and attempt to speak on behalf of my best friend, the dearly departed Caitlin. Caitlin was scared of Dustin and felt trapped. There were several instances during their time in Nevada that Dustin became aggressive with Caitlin during arguments, and even as a toddler, Ellen tried intervening. When Caitlin and Dustin decided it was time to leave Nevada due to finances and lack of family and friend support, Caitlin and the girls moved in with me in Minnesota. Caitlin did not want Dustin's parents to be alone with the girls and did not want Dustin to know the location of her safe haven with me. Caitlin shared with several of her closest loved ones in recent months before her death that if anything were to happen to her, she wanted the girls to be raised by her brother Bailey, her cousin Annie, or me, and in that order, as she said. We were all supporting each other to manage our separate households and the children at the time, so it seemed as though she knew the danger she was in and what Dustin was capable of. Dustin's behaviors of control, delusions and paranoia, threats, and physical violence prior to his choice to kill the mother of his children are worth mentioning. As far as I understand family law, Dustin had no legal rights to the children as they were only residents of Minnesota and Nevada, in which unmarried mothers automatically assumed boyfriend custody, and Dustin never filed for custody with the court. Yet he claims Caitlin was holding Ellen hostage and that she was trying to kidnap them. Dustin's delusion that Caitlin was going to take the kids and never let him see them seems to be the motivating factor in all of these unjust experiences. Caitlin had no intention and didn't even suggest that she would ever try to keep the girls from Dustin. In reality, Dustin actually physically kept the girls from Caitlin on countless occasions and became aggressive or violent when she tried to reason with him. Caitlin reported one of these moments to local Minnesota police where Dustin was staying with his parents and the police did nothing. Dustin also bruised Caitlin's back with a physical assault in front of his father when she asked Dustin for financial support. Dustin's actions continue. During confrontations in Nevada, Ellen would stand between Dustin and Caitlin and scream at her dad. Ellen has since shared with me that she wasn't strong enough to protect her mom. Ellen's own thoughts and observations of why her dad killed her mom is that he wanted the girls all to himself and he wanted mom gone. Dustin ruined his children's lives and Caitlin died protecting them. During the defense trial, Dustin showed no signs of remorse, regret, or compassion for killing the mother of his children, or how Caitlin's loved ones, including his own children, have been affected by it. His long-winded defense proves that he still believes he was justified in committing murder. Unfortunately, my best friend's life ended as a perfect example of the importance of the support needed for mothers and women living with domestic violence. Sadly, I now believe that the murder of my best friend was an inevitable fate. Dustin was determined to control the situation, even if that meant she had to die. Dustin and was not learn to be a lawful man. He was determined to have the children to himself regardless of basic moral decency or the law. He should never be allowed to live in a civilized society or have any rights to be active in his children's lives after the terror he has placed on all of us. It is impossible to state how the murder of my best friend has affected my life because it has taken control of everything and continues to take control at every moment. None of Caitlin's adults, loved ones, have even had a chance to focus on ourselves and deal with our own loss and grief or how it has impacted us fully. Because we all have been focusing on the effect that on the girls and trying to ensure they are safe and cared for. The aggressive nature of Dustin's defense and his family's non-compassionate actions and words, even after an entire jury found Dustin guilty on all charges, continues to impact all of our lives. For me personally, there was the initial and immediate trauma effects of finding out what happened, trying to figure out what to do with myself and how to continue to resist. Everyone I lived with was suddenly gone and never coming back. I could not return to my home for weeks after the murder. My entire daily life was instantly changed, and I'm reminded of this every day through silence and ghosts in my home. I immediately started attending weekly trauma-focused therapy sessions. About 6 months after speaking with investigators and the initial trauma started wearing off, I began experiencing frequent ocular migraines that caused me to have temporary blindness. I've gone to the emergency room at least 4 times through panic attacks since the murder. And now I'm forced to diligently work on managing the post-traumatic effects of the event. I took on responsibility for Caitlin's and the girls' belongings after she was killed because they lived in my home. Due to the girls not not being able to return to Minnesota for months after Caitlin was killed, I focused on sorting, packing, and distributing her treasured belongings. During these months, I spent long hours seeking information for the criminal case that only I might have. This is all I could do. As soon as the girls returned to Minnesota, I realized the new reality that my life was forced into. I could be there for them and start to help them have some familiarity, comfort, and a sense of their mom after the horrific events that they were forced to experience. Dustin's previous and continued actions have given me a new sense of fear and rage that didn't exist prior to the murder. I now have to live with and manage daily, regardless of the results of this sentencing. I missed countless days of work due to the trauma of the murder. The mental, emotional, and physical impact Caitlin's murder has had on myself has also affected all of my other relationships, my work, and every aspect of my life. Dustin's actions have absolutely impacted me financially as well, but money is the least important in the wave of his destruction. When Dustin chose to end Caitlin's life, he became a thief. He stole dreams, future, hope, joy, and love from everyone who loved Caitlin. Caitlin and I had a dream of a future shared home and life that I now have to live without. Dustin stole loving attachment and healthy development from his children. He replaced trust and love with terror and despair. Dustin not only ended Caitlin's life, he ended my life, his children's lives, and Caitlin's friends and family's lives. Anyone who loved Caitlin and saw a future with her was also killed when Dustin pulled that trigger. We are now forced to live lives and plan for futures that we did not choose. Our free will was murdered along with our dearly loved Caitlin. There's no justice in any of this. Regardless of the sentencing, we all have to live a life we didn't choose. Instead, Dustin chose it for us. Caitlin will always be my soul sister and best friend, alive and dead. Caitlin and I decided that we would be each other's platonic life partners, and now I have to live without that. I ask that the court let ourselves in the maximum all possible for each individual charge. Given this maximum sentence will not accurately punish Dustin for his unlawful, whether charged or not charged, actions. Nor will it give us our lives as a living Caitlin path, and may help us to find a new sense of hope for moral and just humanity in the future spirit of close to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next impact statement is also remote, and it is from Heather Naffziger on behalf of herself, Caitlin's sister-in-law, and
Hello, Heather, Heather, Naffziger, Naffziger. My name is Heather, and I'm writing this statement jointly with my husband, Bailey. Caitlin Naffziger was our sister and sister-in-law. We, along with many others, called her Goose. Goose was our light. She became the sister I never had and had always wanted. We enjoyed cooking together, and Goose would often come over to our house with the kids or by herself. Our home was her home. When she lived in Las Vegas, we would FaceTime with her and the kids often. We have always been a part of her and her girls' lives. I was there for the girls' development and would help her often when she wasn't living out of state. Her dream was to live on a commune or within a co-housing system with her closest family and friends. She had so much love to give. All she wanted was for everyone to be together. Listening to her is trying to lessen the pain or at least the initial shock. Nearly 2 years since she's been gone, we remain devastated.